The invisible weight of being the emotional container for everyone else and never being held yourself. At the core of chronic emotional exhaustion is not weakness, laziness, or fragility. It is a lifelong pattern of overfunctioning emotionally, formed early, where safety came from being needed, not being nurtured. What once protected you, your sensitivity, vigilance, and emotional intelligence, has slowly become the source of your depletion. This is the emotional spine of everything that follows. The psychology of people who feel emotionally tired always. Part 1. High-impact hook and core paradox. 2 to 3 minutes. You wake up tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. Not the kind that coffee touches. It's a deeper fatigue. A quiet heaviness behind the eyes. A sense that even existing requires effort. You're not sad exactly. You're not angry. You're just spent. And what makes it confusing is this. You're usually the strong one. The listener. The one who shows up. The one who holds everything together. But no one sees how heavy it feels to hold yourself together all the time. You feel emotionally tired because your nervous system has learned a dangerous lesson early in life. Rest is unsafe. Softness is risky. Being needed is survival. So you stay alert. You stay available. You stay attuned. Even when nothing is happening, your body acts like something might. And here's the paradox. The very sensitivity that once kept you safe, the emotional intelligence that made you adaptable, the empathy that helped you belong, is now slowly draining you. What protected you once is now quietly costing you everything. Part 2. Definition and psychological authority. 3 to 4 minutes. Chronic emotional exhaustion is not simply burnout. It's not just stress. It's not even depression, though it often gets mislabeled as such. It's the psychological consequence of long-term emotional over-responsibility. Let's name what's actually happening. 1. Parentification. Parentification occurs when a child is forced, implicitly or explicitly, to meet the emotional needs of adults. You learned early that your emotions were inconvenient. Other people's moods mattered more. Being easy, mature, or helpful kept the peace. So you became the emotional regulator of the room. Your nervous system adapted by staying on. Always scanning. Always adjusting. Always anticipating. 2. Hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is a trauma-adapted state where the brain is constantly monitoring for threat, emotional or relational. Not danger like violence, but danger like disapproval, withdrawal, disappointment, emotional unpredictability. Your amygdala learned that safety comes from awareness, not rest. This rewires the nervous system into chronic activation, making emotional fatigue inevitable. 3. Emotional neglect schema. Emotional neglect doesn't mean no one was around. It means no one attuned to your inner world. You may have been praised for being strong, being independent, not needing much. But inside, you learned, my needs are invisible. My feelings are burdens. So you stop checking in with yourself. And when the self is ignored long enough, exhaustion becomes its only language. Part 3. Emotional cost and philosophical weight. 3 to 4 minutes. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents." Emotionally tired people often carry unlived emotional labor that was never theirs to begin with. You sacrificed authenticity for acceptance, presence for predictability, truth for harmony, and no one ever marked that loss. This is what philosophers call invisible grief. There was no funeral for the version of you who wanted to rest, wanted to be messy, wanted to receive without earning. So the grief went underground. It shows up now as emotional numbness, quiet resentment, a sense that joy feels far away. The core fear beneath emotional exhaustion is simple but devastating. If I stop holding everything together, I will be abandoned. So even rest feels unsafe. Even happiness feels conditional. You struggle to enjoy moments because part of you is always bracing for the emotional aftermath. And the tragedy is this. You are exhausted not because you feel too much, but because you were never allowed to feel freely. Part 4. Adult manifestation and the unlearning process. 4 to 5 minutes. These patterns don't disappear with age. They evolve. Emotionally tired children become adults who function, but rarely feel restored. You might notice this in specific ways. Relationships. You attract emotionally dependent or unavailable partners. You become the therapist, not the beloved. You feel drained after connection instead of nourished. Career. You overperform without feeling fulfilled. You tie worth to productivity. You feel guilty resting, even when burned out. Self-worth. You feel valuable only when useful. You struggle to receive care without discomfort. Compliments feel undeserved. Boundaries. Saying no feels like rejection. You explain yourself excessively. You tolerate emotional overreach. Emotional regulation. You intellectualize feelings instead of feeling them. You shut down when overwhelmed. You oscillate between numbness and emotional flooding. Internal identity. You don't know who you are without responsibility. You fear being too much or not enough. You confuse survival skills with personality traits. But here's the reframe that changes everything. These are not flaws. They are adaptations. And healing begins not with fixing, but with witnessing. When you stop gaslighting your exhaustion and start listening to it, that's the beginning of unlearning. Part 5. Healing, Conclusion, and Affirmation, 3 to 4 minutes. Healing emotional exhaustion is not about becoming stronger. It's about becoming safer inside yourself. Inner child reparenting. You begin offering yourself what was missing. Validation without performance. Comfort without explanation. Presence without pressure. Shadow work. You allow yourself to meet the parts you buried. The needy part. The angry part. The tired part. Not to eliminate them, but to integrate them. Nervous system regulation. Healing happens in the body first. Slowing down without justification. Letting stillness feel unfamiliar, but not wrong. Choosing gentleness even when survival urges productivity. This is the shift. From endurance to allowance. From proving to being. As philosopher Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, try to love the questions themselves and live the questions now. You are not broken for being tired. You are tired because you carried too much for too long, silently, competently, invisibly. And now, you are allowed to put it down. The goal is not to be fixed. The goal is to become whole. If this resonated, share it with someone who feels quietly exhausted too. Subscribe if you're ready to unlearn survival and choose softness. You were never meant to hold everything alone. Part 6. Relationships, Rest, and the Fear of Being Held. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that only appears in relationships. It shows up when someone finally offers to carry you, and your body doesn't relax. Because rest, for you, was never neutral. It was dangerous. Emotionally tired people often don't fear abandonment alone. They fear dependence. Because somewhere early on, you learned, if I need too much, I become a problem. So even in safe relationships, you may struggle to ask for help. Feel uneasy when someone is consistently kind. Interpret care as a debt you must repay. Love becomes another performance. Another role to manage. Another place where you stay emotionally upright. And yet, this is where healing deepens. Not through independence, but through learning how to be held without bracing. This means practicing small, radical acts. Letting someone sit with your silence. Accepting care without explaining your worth. Allowing yourself to disappoint without self-punishment. You don't heal emotional exhaustion by becoming less sensitive. You heal it by discovering that sensitivity does not disqualify you from love. Rest, in relationship, becomes possible only when you stop auditioning for safety. Part 7. Identity Beyond Survival and the New Psychological Contract. Here is the final, quiet truth. If you have been emotionally tired your entire life, then much of your identity was built around survival, not selfhood. Who you are has been shaped by what others needed, what kept you safe, what prevented conflict. So when you begin to rest, it can feel like you're losing yourself. But you're not. You're meeting yourself, for the first time, without armor. This is the moment where a new internal contract is formed. I do not have to earn my right to exist. I do not have to suffer to be valuable. I am allowed to be unfinished and still worthy. Psychologically, this is the transition from trauma identity to integrated identity. From reacting to choosing. From vigilance to presence. You may grieve the years spent exhausted. That grief is healthy. It means you are no longer numb. And slowly, subtly, life begins to feel different. Not louder, not euphoric, just lighter. You start to notice moments where you don't scan the room, where your breath deepens on its own, where you don't need to justify rest. That is not laziness. That is safety. And safety is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a life where your energy finally belongs to you. You were never meant to survive forever. You were meant to live.